So we continue with unemployment. Unemployment simply means people do not have jobs. That is unemployment. So what are the impacts of unemployment on the economy? The economy is like, what are the impacts of unemployment in Libya? So if there's unemployment, which means people do not have a job, how does this affect the economy of a country? And that is what we want to talk about today.
Employment means people don't have a job, right?
Yeah.
Employment, people have a job.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when there's unemployment, the first situation is that it will decrease consumer demand. Unemployment results in a fall in income, thus people have less to spend on consumption. So the first point is this. It's all about this. If there's no job, people do not have job. It simply means they won't be able to spend because your consumption is based on your income. So if you don't have, it's only when you have a job that you're able to, you have income. But because you don't have a job, income falls, and that means you cannot buy goods and services. So unemployment reduces consumer demand. So if demand is reducing because consumption is based on demand, C equals to Y. Your consumption is dependent upon your income. So if you don't have income, you cannot consume. And the only way to have income is to be employed. But if you don't have job, that means you are unemployed. It simply means you don't have income that allows you to buy goods and services. That is the first point. Do we get it? A decrease in consumer demand. Demand reduces because you don't have income to buy the goods and services.
What means
Consumption.
Consumption.
The act of consuming, what you buy, it reduces. So the second one, a fall in inflation. As soon as there is unemployment, there is an inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. If unemployment is increasing, inflation reduces. Why do we have inverse relationship between them? Unemployment means we don't have jobs and we don't have income. Because we don't have income, demand for goods and services reduces. So if there's increasing unemployment, the price of goods and services are expected to fall because it will reduce demand pull inflation. So look at what I wrote there. As a result of unemployment, people have less disposable income. What is disposable income? Disposable income is that income you either spend or save. Disposable income is what? The amount of money you have that you can either save or spend. So now that you are not, because you don't have a job, your disposable income would reduce. And that reduces the demand for goods and services. So most of the time when there's unemployment, people do not have money to buy goods and services. As a result of that, demand pull inflation reduces. Demand pull inflation is an inflation as a result of increase in aggregate demand. So because aggregate demand is reducing based on the fact that people do not have job, it reduces inflation. So I'm going to say that again. A fall in inflation. Inflation is a persistent rise in the price of goods and services. So it is only when people have money that they would want to buy more goods and services. And how will you have money? You can only have money if you have a job. But because people do not have job, it simply means their demand for goods and services reduces. Stop that already, please. Because people do not have job, it simply means their demand for goods and services reduces. And because their demand for goods and services reduces, it reduces demand pull inflation. So every economy that do not have income would have less demand. So aggregate demand is falling. But an increase in aggregate demand will bring about increase in the inflation rate. So when there's unemployment, there's less inflation. So a low unemployment, if unemployment is increasing, inflation will reduce. If employment is increasing, inflation. If employment is increasing, inflation will increase. Sorry, there is a positive, it's positive. Increase in employment, increase in inflation rate. Reduction in unemployment, increase in inflation rate. So employment and inflation have a positive relationship. So which simply means unemployment and inflation have inverse relationship. Do you get it or not? Employment means you have a job. The more jobs you have, the more money you can spend. And that increases inflation. So employment and inflation have positive relationship. Which means unemployment and inflation has what? have negative relationship, inverse relationship. So if people do not have job, they don't have money. The demand for goods will fall. But if people have jobs, they have money. The demand for goods and services increases. Inflation increases. Do we get it? Do we get it or not?
Relationship with what involved.
Yeah, the relationship. Yes. The third one, a hesitancy to invest. Because there's unemployment, people do not have jobs. Businesses will not be able to sell as they used to sell. Because they are not selling, entrepreneurs will not want to produce goods. Because what the entrepreneurs only want to produce goods if there's a market for that good. So because there's no market for the good, they will not want to produce it because people do not have money. Therefore, they would not want to invest. Investment will come based on the fact that there's a return on your investment, which means profit. But if people do not have job, who do you want to sell to? They only want to buy if they have money, but they don't have jobs. That means they don't have money. So you cannot continue to expand your business. And because you cannot expand your business, you cannot employ more workers. Hesitancy to invest. Entrepreneurs will only set up a business if they feel there is a market for their product. But with lower consumption, they will feel reluctant to invest, meaning no jobs will be created. Because revenue is reducing for businesses. They won't have the incentive to produce more. As a result of that, jobs will not be created. The next one, increase in government current expenditure on welfare. Current expenditure means day-to-day expenses of government. Expenses that you get it, but nothing is being returned in terms of production. So because people do not have job, government have to make sure that it's able to balance their life or welfare. So government have to spend more on unemployment benefits. Government will have to increase its spending on unemployment benefits as a way of relief to relieve citizens who are unemployed. So those that don't have job, those who don't have job, have to go to government for help. So government have to find a way around it. So government have to spend more on unemployment benefits. And that increases government expenditure. The next one, a decline in tax revenue or receipts. It is when people have job, they can spend. It's only when people can spend that government will be able to receive taxes. With unemployment, revenue received by government on VAT, income tax, and let's see if I can pull it. Okay. Received by government on VAT, income tax, and corporation tax reduces. This may in turn lead to budget deficit. Because there is less job opportunity, there is increasing unemployment. People do not have income. They won't be able to buy goods and services. Value added tax, VAT, taxes on consumption reduces. Government will not be able to make revenue from VAT. Income tax reduces because people do not have jobs. They don't receive salary. They won't be able to pay income tax. Businesses will not be able to pay profits. They won't be able to pay corporation tax because they are not making profit. So all the taxes that government receive from workers, from consumption, from profit would reduce. So this reduces government revenue. And if government have to continue to spend more, it will bring about budget deficit. Budget deficit means your revenue is less than expenditure. This is what government makes. This is what it spends. So what government is making is less than what it's spending. So it simply means expenditure is greater than revenue. It means expenditure is greater than revenue. That is a deficit. What you receive is more than what you get. Is less than what you are giving out. So government will spend more. Government is spending more than what it receives here. And if government continues to do this, it will bring about national debt. Accumulated deficits. The next one. Is it clear or not? Do you get decline in receipt here. A decline in receipt means taxes reduces. So government would only finance public spending with taxation. But a reduction in taxation means government might be running into deficit. If this equals to this, we call it balance. If this equals to this, we call it balance. And if this...
Can you explain for me what's mean expenditure?
Expenditure is spending, government spending. What government is spending? What government is spending? Unemployment benefit, building roads, government expenditure. Revenue is government receipt from tax. I pay tax. That is government revenue. So what we're saying is, if this revenue that government makes is less than what government is spending, it's a deficit. If what government is making is more than what government is spending, surplus. Budget surplus. If what government is making is the same as what it's spending, balanced budget. So we have three types of budget. We have budget, deficit budget, we have surplus budget, we have balanced budget. Balanced budget is put your head up, please. Revenue, your head up, please. You go out of my classroom, please. Revenue equals to expenditure, balance. Revenue greater than expenditure, surplus. Revenue less than expenditure, deficit. But with decline in tax, it will lead to what? Budget deficit or deficit budget. The next one, a greater taxation burden on the employed. Now that a lot of people do not have job, government will start looking on a way to make money. So what will government do? Government will increase marginal rate of tax or reduce tax credit. Government will want to cut its spending so that it will not go into deficit. So for that to happen, government will increase marginal rate of tax. Marginal rate of tax is the tax that you pay for the extra income you receive. I'm going to say that again. Marginal rate of tax is the tax paid for the extra income that you receive. So those that are earning more will have to pay more taxes. That is how government will be able to make money. And those that government has given tax credits to, government will cut it off. Do you understand burden here? Do you understand burden or not? And the last one, an increase in social problem. When people do not have jobs, what do? They go into crime, vandalism, robbery. These things will happen because they don't have job. Social vices. So it means government have to spend more on security. Is it clear? So these are the impacts of unemployment to the economy. Any question? A greater taxation burden on the employer. Tax burden means who pays the tax. Burden. Who pays the tax? Those who put your head up, I said, right? Put your head up. I don't repeat myself. Tax burden means those who pay the tax. So if people are unemployed, those who are employed are the ones that are going to pay most of the tax. So what will government do? Government will decrease marginal rate of tax. Marginal rate of tax is the tax you pay on the extra income you make. The additional income you make, the tax you pay on it is marginal rate of tax. Or government can also reduce tax credit. Tax credit means the deduction from your tax. So government would reduce the deduction it gives on your tax. So it means your tax burden increases. So because you have job, government would put all their burden on you. Government cannot tax those who don't have jobs. It is only those that have jobs that government can tax. Because government will tax you so that government will be able to, spend on unemployed citizens. So the taxes received from those who have jobs will be used to pay unemployment benefits. If not, there will be what? Budget deficit.